do not like to give up. I do not. I will not, okay? The way I was looking like Alvin and the Chipmunks out here, they knew me in that little hospital that we had on campus. I was in there. I knew the nurse's name. Internally, I literally felt like I was drowning. I kid you not. Oh my goodness, Bancroft soup night. I could not move. Like, I felt this sharp pain all over my body that I could not even explain. Junior year, it was like, I was like, wait a minute. That's the only thing I snorted, y'all, because I did not get into drugs, okay? And never will. In Jesus' mighty name. Because like I said, my body is a temple of God. Come on. I didn't even connect how I ate with anything that had to do with God. I was just like, I was just eating. Like, I was just eating, man. Like, come on. Well, it's been almost 2 years since everything started going downhill, so I think it's finally time to share. Hi, I'm Vera, and you're watching Queen Bee TV. So this is the theme song for this video. So I'm here today because God kept me. I'm alive today only because of His grace. He kept me. God kept me. He kept me. So I wouldn't let go. The reason that's the song is because all glory has to go to God for this testimony that I'm about to share. All glory has to go to God because He is my creator, first of all. Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. Let us make man in our image, in our likeness. And this body that He gave me, the Bible says, in 1 Corinthians 6:19, do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit whom you have from God and is not your own? I know there's a couple of topics about the body when it comes to like, how do you honor God with your body? There's different ways that, humans can fall short of honoring God with their bodies. And one of the ways that occurred for me was in my relationship with food. And that whole thing really blew up during the second half of my high school career. So junior year and senior year, that really destructed my relationship with food. And yeah, back to why the theme song is that, like I said, this body that I have is meant to honor God. And maybe if you're watching this and you're not Christian, or maybe you're someone who grew up Christian, but that deep relationship with God hasn't quite clicked yet, it's okay. Some of what I'm saying may sound like, what are you talking about? It has taken work to get to where I am today in my identity with Christ, but I've realized that giving your life to Christ is the best death you can possibly have, because I have died, and I constantly die every day to my flesh. It's why I can sit here and tell whoever is going to watch this that I was born to worship God. I mean, all of us were. Giving your life to Christ is one of the greatest deaths and one of the best loves, or the best love that you can ever experience. The Word of God says, whether you eat or drink, you should do that to the glory of God. Junior year, that is not what I was doing. I was not glorifying God with how I ate, but for a while, I didn't even connect how I ate with anything that had to do with God. I was just like, I was just eating. Like, I was just eating, man. Like, come on. I was just eating. Okay, now let's really start talking about food and whatnot. Junior year, that would have to be the toughest year of boarding school. That was the year where a lot of rough things happened, internally with me, emotionally, mentally, and also externally, that impacted me negatively, physically, emotionally, and mentally. Okay, so first sign that like something was wrong. Before going into junior year anyways, I had this kind of existential crisis about what career I was going to go into, trying to figure that out. But that existential crisis was actually at a point where I found out one of the reasons why God has put me on this earth. That was because I asked God, like, in my tears, I asked God, hey, what do you think? Because you created me. Psalms 139, I like to go back to that a lot to talk about destiny and life, because God knows, like, he's the one that wrote the book of our lives, so you feel me? Anyways, junior year started off rough. Every like midpoint way in each of the trimesters at my school, we get midterm grades, right? So I remember having a one-on-one meeting with my advisor in her classroom, and she pulled out a post-it note and gave it to me, and I literally burst into tears. Why did I start crying, right? At that point, there was a lot of pressure building up regarding my classes, and the tears that were released at that point, I recognized in that moment that it was because it just felt like my whole life was controlled by school. Like, I just remember just not being happy. This was the year that I really started struggling with anxiety. It just kind of punched me in the face. I started opening up to trusted adults, getting advice, creating spaces for myself where I could actually process whatever was going on out loud. But I can't even remember the details. That's why you shouldn't even stress yourself so much, like, over academics and like the nitty-gritty of school. It's always great to pursue that, but like looking back, I can't even remember like the particular test that really stressed me out or whatever. But I remember that I remember, yes. The first root of the struggle was my grades, my academics. The subjects that really tripped me up, even the year before, were the sciences. So physics, I struggled with that the year before, and now chemistry was the beast. That was really like, and then I had other subjects, you know, that I had to worry about and not worry about. But and then college journey, right? So this was the year that I really became mindful about my GPA and pretty stressed about like building up my resume and things like that, because I was like, this is the year, like this is what counts. I just had all these worries, right? Notice worries was what was driving the emotional stress that I was going through. And this whole experience with food struggles, it made me understand firsthand how emotional issues can reflect on you physically. Even at this time, I was not getting enough sleep because my school was just a pretty intense environment in general. And I kid you not, junior year kind of was like, dang, like it was like I was like, wait a minute, where did all this work come from? It just felt like, wow, this is so much to handle. One of the trusted adults that I reached out to was my advisor. Actually connected me with an academic advisor. So I realized that my school has this academic advisor and we became besties. I love you, Mr. Neidig. Like, you really helped me out. In the midst of all this stress, I'm a person that, you know, and this is how I was raised and just how God gave birth to me. Like, have what God placed in me. I do not like to give up. I do not. I will not. Okay. I don't give up. But, you know, it was really hard. But this is what I was doing with my subjects. I was going to the learning center almost every night. And so I was meeting with my teachers anytime I could. I was meeting with my academic advisor, meeting with my actual advisor, talking with trusted adults, trying to create study plans, you know, because the thing that, I just remember one of the first things that I shared with my academic advisor was when I would come to take a chemistry test, I also had issues with pacing. My mind would just go blank. I was also leading clubs. I was also involved in a lot of things. Like, that was another thing I was trying to figure out, how to decompress, you know, how to buckle down and do less. Like, those are some of the stressful decisions. Like, I almost did not join concert choir because of how stressed that I was getting, right? So in the meantime of me trying to juggle all these things, what was happening without me realizing it is that I started eating unconsciously. Like, I started, if you would call it like snorting food. That's the only thing I snorted, y'all, because I did not get into drugs, okay? And never will. In Jesus' mighty name. Because like I said, my body is a temple of God. Come on, okay, let me chill. So one thing about boarding school is you have a lot of access to food. I mean, one of the traditions that we would have is the dorm faculty would cook for us because they're so sweet. Love you so much. Oh my goodness, every single one of you, from the spinach dip to the cakes to the cookies to the cupcakes to the mashed potato. Nobody gave us mashed potatoes. To the ice cream, to the soup night. Oh my goodness, Bancroft soup night. Bancroft soup night is like forever a staple memory in my high school career. Like, I love Bancroft so much. But anyways, there was a lot of access to food from club meetings. Like I was co-head of African Students Association, Afro Shade as well, which is the dance club. I was involved in other clubs, like other affinity groups, you know, other events, and there would be food. You know, this food is not like, for the most part, it's not fruits and veggies from the garden or something, you know. It's like it's snacks, it's sweet stuff, it's whatever. And unconsciously I would just snort this food. Like, there was even a moment during junior year where, I mean, I didn't have a lot of time for YouTube either. That was another stressor. So I just kind of like, whatever, I would film stuff here and there. So one of the times I got an idea, what I eat in a week or something, just kind of film what I eat. Little did I know God was gonna use that to slap me in the face and be like, girl, look at what you were eating. Look what you were putting in your body. I was eating all sorts of, the way I would pack my plate. I mean, I had some guy friends where I would look at their plate and it's looking like Mount Everest. And I'm like, why are you eating that much? But, you know, those were guy athletes, you know, they did crew and whatnot. They did rowing. They needed the, whatever they needed. But for me, I know I'm not someone that is gluttonous, but at the time I was gluttonous. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm looking at my plates from back then, I'm like, bruh. And the quality of the food that I was eating, okay, what I want to say about my boarding school's food is, first of all, I love every single D-Hall worker there. They actually have saved my life, and they have saved food for me. Like, I love you, Kathy. I love you, Keith. I love you, Rebecca. I love you, Monica. I love, like, so much, too many. I love you, Drew. Too many to count. But the thing is, my school had great food. Ooh, great food compared to like the average school, average high school, public school, charter school, whatever. It's a private school, Phillips Exeter Academy, like one of the best schools in the nation. So the food was good. For example, like some other people are starving right now. Some people do not have food at all. Okay, so the food was good. But let me tell you, the food, sometimes with my immune system and whatnot, it didn't really connect. It didn't really vibe. It didn't really mesh well. Okay, so what would happen is some things, let's say I had too much carbs on my plate, or I ate too much of a particular thing, like, or I didn't like a particular thing that the D-Hall was serving, but I ate it anyways, and my stomach didn't mesh well with it. And this year, ah, God, you are good. Hey, the way I suffered. Because I just started to reflect on all the health issues that were coming up, right? Suddenly, like I said, I was having these academic pressures. That's number one. Number two is that manifested in my eating habits. So my academic stressors affected my emotional state. That affected my eating habits, okay, right? So I started eating junk a lot and mindlessly. And that affected my health. No brainer, but I was not aware of this whole process going on. So I became that girl who every weekend or every other day was in the health center for one reason or the other. And thank God my school even had the resource of a health center, okay? I would be that girl where I would have to tell my dorm, I would wake up at 12 a.m. or like, and something would be wrong with me and I would have to go to the health center. Like, guys, like, oh, because God really helped me out. I started to have issues with digestion. Like, y'all, the way that you eat really impacts your health. Like, it really impacts you spiritually, mentally, physically. Like, at a certain point, every time I would eat, I couldn't even the food would feel like it was stuck in my throat. Like, that was a major issue. I would have issues with digestion, acne. I was already not even sleeping enough, so obviously I had these eye bags, you know. And slowly but surely, when I would look in the mirror, I did not like what I saw. Yeah, I didn't like it, but I didn't know how to get out of it, you know. And you know, another thing, I didn't have a weight scale, so I couldn't really see the numbers. I just knew what I was feeling. I just knew that a lot of times I would be going to the health center for one health issue or the other. And before I went to boarding school, I was a perfectly healthy child. So what in the world is happening? And like I said at the beginning of the video, there were internal pressures, expectations that I put on myself, academics wise, extracurricular wise. I wanted to be that well-rounded student, but it's not even like the root of that was all about college. It's just that I'm the type of person where God has endowed me with so many gifts and so many interests and so many passions, and it was really difficult for me to figure out what exactly am I supposed to pursue in this period. And my family was very supportive and helpful in this period because they saw the amount of pressure that I was putting on myself, talk nonetheless of my school being a high intense competitive environment, still some collaboration. The level of expectation at Exeter was, I can't even fit it into the screen. Like, for high school students, like the expectations we were held to, it was just crazy, you know. And I was putting this pressure on myself because there are things that I wanted to achieve. I strive for excellence all the time. I was at a school that expected excellence of me, but I had to come to terms with, you can try your absolute best. You can stay out of your dorm and go to the learning center every single night and come back at 9 p.m. You can do your best to plan and to study well. Those things were great, but when you do that and it does not work out how you want it to, please do not think that you are suddenly the worst person in the world. That was the issue for me junior year. The expectations that I set for myself versus what I was actually able to accomplish, reconciling that was difficult. So that was the main internal thing. But there's also external things, like the that I was leading in these various clubs, the people that I was accountable to in dance and concert choir, in my classes, you know, things of that nature. And a big external thing, a big, oof. Okay, I was not trying to cry this much during this video, but a big external thing that really shook my world was losing a classmate. I mean, it shook the entire school. It shook our worlds. Every year my school celebrates Martin Luther King Jr. Day. We actually have school off, and instead we spend the whole day celebrating. There's different workshops that students and faculty organize, and we bring in guest speakers. We bring in alumni to talk, and it was a beautiful snowy day. This was in January, and I remember walking to my next workshop, and then everybody was getting this email that he'd lost somebody on campus, and I was like, what? I think my mind was kind of trying to go to, like, somebody was missing, you know, somebody maybe left campus or something like that and didn't come back, and or, you know, if it was on the death side, which was almost incomprehensible to me, that, you know, maybe somebody fell from somewhere and they really got injured. And all of a sudden, the school said that MLK Day was canceled. And I'm like, what? Canceled? And then I'm just talking to people trying to figure out what happened. And we then find out that a classmate of mine, a student, had committed suicide. And I went to the dining hall for lunch, and that was the most depressing atmosphere and most quiet that I had ever heard. The dining hall. You could hear a pin drop. Even if all the lights were on, it just felt dark. It felt dark in there, and some faculty were going around like comforting the students, and I mean, a lot of people were trying to figure out like what happened, like what in the world is happening. I can't even like remember or disclose all the details, but I think on the same day my school gathered us together and the principal gave an announcement about the death, and I mean, it just was like, it was just incomprehensible. It was dark, but the school, I think they did their best with what they knew at the time about handling the situation, and a lot of people on campus started to pay more attention to each other. I mean, that was one of the positive outcomes of this really dark situation. We started to check up on each other more, ask people how they're doing. And something that I noticed at Exeter and even in the real world is that sometimes, because of the fast pace, you will ask somebody or somebody will ask you, how are you? And they don't even give you a chance to respond. I mean, the person just keeps walking, or you just keep walking. You're like, how are you? Okay, I'm on to the next thing. And these are little things that kind of are adding up to just make me in that period just kind of dislike being at school. But I mean, in this time, people were really paying attention to each other and seeing how they could support each other. And teachers were trying to be accommodating. I think there was a period of time, I can't remember how long it was, but it wasn't that long, where some classes were canceled, but then, you know, the expectation came back that we should go back to class if we were able to. And everyone was impacted, you know, some people more than others or in different ways. Even when I thought I had cried the last cry I would, then all of a sudden, in the middle of an H-block math class, another thing about this time, right, and the structure of my school. In the winter term, we have classes from like as early as 8 a.m. to as late as like 5:50 p.m. So almost 6 p.m. And so imagine it gets dark around 3-4 p.m. It's snowing, it's cold, you just lost your classmate. I mean, I was still struggling in subjects like chemistry and math. I was trying to meet up with all of these expectations that I put on myself, and you know, the obligations that I had to people, and then college, you know, expectations, and just trying to be a good student, trying to be a good child of God. And you have to go to class in this dark, like everything just felt so, for lack of a better words, depressing. That's how it felt. And I remember starting to associate school with his death. I really leaned in heavy to my best friend in the dorm, just community in general. But I remember anytime school was just getting harder and harder, like I remember being on the floor of my room one day, weeping and being like, what am I doing here? Everything started to feel pointless. The grind of school, like the rat race, everything that I was working towards, I was like, why? Like, God, I was asking God, what am I doing? Why am I even here? I never asked myself that before, because remember, that was that eager freshman, that eager 8th grader that really wanted to get into Phillips Exeter Academy, and I don't regret it one bit. It's a beautiful, 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 beautiful part of my life story. It has made me who I am today, given me the connections that I have today, taught me a lot of things that I know today. And so I don't regret it. But at the time I was like, God, what am I doing here? And God would lovingly remind me, girl, you prayed for this. Girl, you prayed for this. So don't even act like Don't even act like that. I vividly remember as an 8th grader who was applying to boarding school, one day I was on my knees in church. My pastor had put out a prayer poster, like for people to write down their prayers. And I remember being on my knees as a little 13-year-old, like praying, God, please let your daughter Vera get into her top choice boarding school, Phillips Exeter Academy. And you may be in a time in which you're asking God what I was asking God junior year. Why am I here? The thing is, when you ask that why, I mean, you know, it's not gonna magically transport you out of the situation, right? And so I just want to encourage you that even if you don't know the why, there's a reason you don't know the why. And you may not know the reason why you don't know the why. And you might be going around in circles being like, why don't I know the why? But sometimes it's better, I mean, not sometimes, all the time. It's better to lean into God for comfort and ask him for discernment and wisdom. Like James chapter 1 verse 5 says, if anyone lacks wisdom, let him or her ask God, who gives freely to all without judgment. Ask him for wisdom. If he doesn't give you the why, think about it. What will the why do for you? You know the reason why you're going through what you're going to go through, and it'll somehow motivate you to keep going. But sometimes God wants you to see or be in the position where you really have to trust him. And from junior year to where I am now, I'm a freshman in college, though I am on a gap semester, so I start in the spring term in January. He will allow you to be in a place where you do not know all the answers. And then you really have to dig deep and rely on him. And this is not going to look perfect, but it was the start of that journey of really relying on God and knowing what it meant to weep at his feet and being like, God, I can't take this weight anymore. Did that mean I magically started eating better, started feeling happier, started being less anxious all the time, started excelling in chemistry and math? No, it just meant I had to accept that that season was a hard season. It was a difficult season, but every day that I woke up and I decided to try again, like, I'm getting emotional in this video. Like, every day that I woke up and decided to try again, God gave me enough strength. I don't want you guys to see these tears as like sad tears. I think these are really just honestly happy and grateful tears, because I mean, you know, these tears when you went through something and you made it out better than you went into that thing. You just have to give the glory and thanks to the Lord and be grateful for the people that were with you in that season. So yeah, I was gaining weight uncontrollably. It's something that I kind of noticed, but not really. It was more manifesting in itself in the sense that I was in the health center a lot. I had one issue or the other. I'm someone that sometimes gets spring allergies, but nothing really crazy, you feel me? By spring term, oh my goodness, like I remember being in math class one day and I literally could not breathe. I was like, what is going on? Like, I had to tell my teacher, hey, I have to go to the health center because like right now I physically cannot breathe. I had to end up staying in the health center overnight, and all of this stuff too was stressing my parents, because I would tell them, you know, hey, this is what's happening, and they were praying for me, and they were supporting me, and they're like, Vera, you know, stop putting too much pressure on yourself, and they were trying their best, and they were always interceding for me behind the scenes and on the scenes, if that makes sense. man, looking at my pictures and videos from that time, like the way my cheeks got so puffy, like, I mean, the way my eyes look like dead, like the way I was looking like Alvin and the Chipmunks out here with some, what is it called, acorns in my mouth, like the way I have naturally like apple cheeks, and you know, twinning with my dad, such a blessing the features God has given me. But in that time, like, I was looking like a balloon for real, and obviously that was impacting my self-esteem as well. But man, I did not really care. Like, I really had to push through it, because the main thing was I need to get good enough grades to get into college. But every day was a battle. Like, guys, every day was a battle. But we made it. And God always showed me here and there. He would peek, he would be like, hey daughter, look at this light. And so some of the things that were light during that time was Christian fellowship. Huge light. I mean, we would gather there every Wednesday. Despite how busy and stressed I was, like, that saying yes to certain things, like even Christian fellowship, felt like, oh shoot, like now I'm spending time that I could be using to do homework and like get into America's top best college, which I'm at right now. What's up? And I didn't even know that college was for me initially, because God knows all things, you feel me? But anyways, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I attend Babson College, which happens to be the #2 school in the nation, what, according to Wall Street Journal, and #1 in business and entrepreneurship. So shout out to God, because I had my own plans even senior year, and he was like, okay girl, man, you know, you think up your plans, but it's the Lord that establishes your steps, you feel me? That's what God did to me, like junior year and senior year. Where was I? So light, glimpses of light was impeccable support that I was getting from trusted adults, from really close friends. I mean, it showed me that I truly am loved, because yeah, it showed me that I'm truly loved, because there are people that stick beside me, and I'ma stick beside them. That stick beside me, you know, my advisor. Oh my gosh, the way I love this woman. She is blessed and highly favored in Jesus' mighty name, and her generations are blessed. Forever and ever. Amen. Support like that. Support from my family. That was a glimpse of light. You know, creating choreography for my dance group, and also going to Puerto Rico in the spring for the concert choir tour. That was such a, oh my goodness. Like, I can't even tell you, like, that's probably a whole separate video. Like, that experience of going to Puerto Rico, like, as someone who's also like almost fluent Spanish speaker, singing in Spanish, and also just really connecting with people there and meeting other choirs, and just like, that was a glimpse of light. And still during that time, I had like a poor relationship with food. Oh my goodness, I can't, oh y'all, I just remembered something.